started off as a 17-year-old in the Department of Social Welfare in the office, looking after adoption papers and such things. And then, but I always wanted to work with children, and so I duly got sent off to a boys' home in Wanganui that had 60 young boys between the age of 10 and 13, 14, and I was only 18 myself. I was the youngest person that had ever been appointed into a boys' home. It was newly opened, it was a new experiment, and I was to be auntie, but actually it nearly killed me. It wasn't it wasn't the great experience that I was thinking all these lovely children would would love me and I would love them, and some days it was hell on earth. But there I also had some good times. I met Graham, and we courted in front of 60 boys. Any idea what that was like? And duly married, and I was out of that job pretty quick as soon as I got married. My other jobs, yes. I was, I've just had a mental blank. It's all right, it will come back. So when I was in Wanganui, after I had my children, I started work in the Wellington Hospital Foundation. When we moved to, sorry, I've got my dates mixed up. I worked in, that's good, it's somebody's mother, somebody's child's calling their mother. So, yeah. So later on, I started work at the hospice. Got it in my head now. At the hospice, and recruiting and training volunteers to work in the community with people who were terminally ill. And following that, I worked with the Child Cancer Society and did work with them with children of families who had a child with cancer. And after that, I moved to Wellington and worked with the Wellington Hospital Foundation for 18 years, recruiting and training, once again, volunteers for the hospital. But I'd like to say that none of those jobs were as important as my number one job in raising children. All I wanted to be was a mother, even at a very young age. And I bet if we asked most mothers here today, did they do the best job? Did they have the most important job in the world? There would be feelings of inadequacy popping up all over the place. Did I do enough? Was I a good enough mother? And it's very sad when you ask women what they do if they don't work out in the world for paid jobs, and they 9 times out of 10 will say to you, "Oh, I'm just a mother. I'm just a mum." But most of us know how they undervalue themselves. We do that as women. We undervalue ourselves. And most of us here know exactly what Proverbs 31 says, and feel like we've come up short in one way or another. Because, of course, not one of us is perfect. And so it becomes really difficult at times, and that's why we all need help along the way. And as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. And I remember, I don't know why I didn't do it with my other 2 children, but I remember when my youngest son was 21, I sent cards to all his friends' mothers and his paediatrician and his doctor, and say, "Thank you for getting this kid to 21 and for the part that you've done in helping raise our child. So my own mother was a great example to me. She brought up 7 children, with Dad, of course, but she was the main caregiver. We forget about the dads today, I'm sorry for all dads here. But she brought up 7 children in a small 3-bedroom state house with very few trimmings that we have today, but she never complained. And she always seemed content and loved being a mother. So I had a great example. My mother-in-law was a great encourager. She would always tell our kids how lucky they were to have the best mother in the world. And it wasn't true, of course, but she always had my back. I had brave women in my life, some very brave women who faced things in their lives that I prayed that I would never have to face. I had my very first encounter with a brave woman really was the person who led me into an adult decision into Christ. She was a young mum with 2 children, and she had cancer, and I knew she had to face the letting go of her children. And the way she did that, and the way she trusted in God for all her needs, but for her children, for the future, was in fact the way that I really started to think about the Lord in my life as an adult. And that's where I made the decision at that time. And I've had the privilege of being a small part of the life of around 8 families way back then who had children with cancer. And a good half of those children died. Such pain, such unimaginable pain. And it quickly taught me to be so grateful to God for the children that I had been given. None of us have to do life alone. We all need others who champion us, to get alongside us and encourage each other. Woman, older woman, there's no redundancy. There's no redundancy. Go find some young mums, encourage and help practically, pray for them, and be open, and you young mums, be open and let some of the older ones into your life, because they can be great support workers for you. And just think about it, they may know a few more tricks than you do about bringing up children, and they would love to share them. So my first point today is we need, as new mums, to wholeheartedly receive the gift of children. And you might think, well, that's a given, but at times we don't fully appreciate what God has given us. When I had my first child at 21, I'd just like to tell you I spent my 21st birthday in the maternity annex, my 23rd birthday in the maternity annex, and my 27th birthday in the maternity annex. That was organisation, wasn't it? Yeah. But when I had my first child at 21, I learned pretty quickly that my life, my time, was now just not my own. Babies don't sleep when you want them to. They don't feed themselves. They don't change their own nappies or do their own washing. They don't entertain themselves, and they don't tease quietly. They are actually totally self-absorbed little bundles, and our job for the next 21 years is to love them, train them, pray for them. But actually, in reality, it's one selfish, self-absorbed baby training one self-absorbed mother to become a parent. And the one self-absorbed parent is training the one self-absorbed baby. So it's a double deal, isn't it, really? It's a season of dying to yourself and giving 100% of your everyday life to this other little human being. So we need to be willing to receive what God has given us, and then we need to treasure the gift that God has given us. Life's very precious and fragile. Our first child, David, was an asthmatic, and I, as in we, spent many a night without sleep watching him struggle to breathe and several trips to the hospital. Number 2 child, Rochelle, we thought we'd hit the jackpot. She was healthy and strong. I thought, we'll quit while we're ahead. But our 3rd child came along, and his name was Joseph, and he had very serious lifelong medical issues. He was a child of promise, as I wasn't supposed to have any more children, but 4 years later felt the Lord say to us, go again, do it again. It was a bit in between, but don't be afraid, have another child. And because I thought he was ordered by God, from God, when he was born with very serious lifelong medical issues, the big why question came up. And I really struggled. Did I hear wrong? What did I do wrong? Is God angry with me? And what's he trying to teach me? And it wasn't until quite a few years later, when I looked back since his birth, that I started to understand. Because it changed my life personally, made me more patient. Can you imagine it? Loving, and a better person, all-round mother. And it changed the direction also of my life in many ways. After he was born, was spending time with doctors and whatever. It's a big story, trying to tell it in a small few minutes. I was asked would I set up a support group for parents in the Children's Hospital in Wanganui, and reach out to other families. And so I did that, and I used to observe them and wonder how did they cope without Jesus in their life and without the help of the Holy Spirit in their life. And a lot of them didn't. Split families, it caused great struggles financially and all those things when you have a sick child. And so that's how I started out reaching out. And then once I did this children's support group, then it led on to them asking, will you go to a child cancer support group and get involved in there and talk to them and help wherever you can. And so I started doing that and was there for quite a few years, and during that time we had children and families back at our home, but were able to reach out to them, and we saw a lot of them died, but a lot survived. And it was interesting to watch the dynamics of how those who then came to a place where they knew they needed God in their life, they knew they needed Jesus in their life, and it changed their whole lives. And then there were those who turned away and turned against God because of their loss. And so it was a wonderful time of being able to minister people. And then later on, which is also a very long story, but it meant that I was involved with a mum who was actually starving her children and feeding them with chemicals. It's called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And she went undiagnosed for months and months, and these children were very ill. And because I was able to get a little bit close to them, the Spirit of God within me just knew this is not right. The doctors were going to send her to Canada for treatment on their livers, so there must be something wrong with their liver. But there wasn't not one thing wrong with those children. And long story short, they were taken from her, and they were placed in foster homes, and they just thrived and grew beautifully. But those two children were very near death without God intervening. And I feel like he just sent me as a message, I'm just a mum. Just a mum. I don't have any particular qualities that anybody else didn't have, but I'm just a mum who listened to God at that right time. And that's when and all these things brought home to me how we need to appreciate our everyday lives and what God has given us, the children He has given us. And our trials and sicknesses are yes, and there are happy, but they're also happy and fun times and very proud times of our children. They are all precious. So, the third point is by the time, then when you become totally besotted with your kids and your whole life revolves around them, it's actually time to let them go. And I just want to read this poem that I found a long time ago, but it really spoke to me. When you first have children, they talk about the challenges of parenting, the struggles of a baby waking in a night, the toddler who won't stay in their bed, the cost of childcare, injuries from sports, having to take off work to pick them up from school when they don't feel well, helping them with homework, a messy house, never-ending laundry, the cost of buying school clothes, packing their lunches. You watch their eyes light up on Christmas morning and try to soak in the magic of those moments. You coach them in sports, rushing to practices and ball games. You tote them all over the country and let them play the game they love. No matter how exhausting and how expensive it becomes, life is just so busy that you really even stop to think what the end of those days look like. In fact, it's not really even something you can wrap your mind around. You go into it thinking that 18 to 20 years sounds like a long time. Then suddenly hours turn into days, and days into months, and months into years. That little person that used to crawl up next to you in bed and cuddle up to watch cartoons suddenly becomes this young adult who hugs you in the hallway as you go by, if you're lucky. It is. And the chaos and laughter that used to echo throughout your home now gets filled with silence and solitude. You've learned how to parent a child who needs you to care for and protect them, but you have no clue how the whole letting go thing is supposed to work. So you hold on as tight as you can, wondering how time passed you so quickly, feeling guilty that you missed something, because even though you had 20 years, it just somehow didn't seem long enough. You ask yourself many questions. Did you teach them the right lessons? Did you read them enough books as a child, spend enough time playing with them? How many school parties did you have to miss? Did they really know how much you love them? What could have I done better as a parent? And when it's time for them to go, it all hits you like a ton of bricks. And all you can do is pray, hope, and trust that God will protect them as they start to make their way in the world alone. Parenting is by far the most amazing experience of your life, and at times leaves you exhilarated, and others leaves you heartbroken. But one thing is certain, it's never enough time. So all the parents with young children whose days are spent trying to figure out how to make it through the madness, exhausted days and day out, soak it all in, because one day, all those crazy days full of cartoons, snuggles, sleepovers, Christmas morning magic, ball games, practices and late night dinners all come to an end, and you're left hoping that you did enough, right? So that when they spread their wings, they'll fly. It's a great story, isn't it? So maybe Proverbs 30 is not so daunting and irrelevant as we thought it was, and still helps us to be great mums in 2024. And if you read in the Message Bible, which I'm just going to quickly read you a bit out of, 31. Proverbs 31, yes. Yeah, I'll start at verse 10. It's in the modern version. It says, "A good woman is hard to find and worth far more than diamonds. Her husband trusts her without reserve and never has reason to regret it. Never spiteful, she treats him generously all her life long. She shops around for the best yarns and cottons and enjoys knitting and sewing. She's like a trading ship that sails to faraway places and brings back exotic surprises. She's up before dawn," not sure about that, "preparing breakfast for her family and organising her day. She looks over a field and buys it. Then with money she puts aside, plants a garden. First thing in the morning she dresses for work, rolls up her sleeves, eager to get started." Does that sound like every one of you here? "She senses the worth of her work, is in no hurry to call it quits for the day. She's skilled in the crafts of home and hearth, diligent in homemaking. She's quick to assist anyone in need and reaches out to help the poor. She doesn't worry about her family when it snows. Their winter clothes are all mended and ready to wear. She makes her own clothing and dresses in colourful linens and silks. Her husband is greatly respected when he deliberates with the city fathers. She designs gowns and sells them, brings the sweaters she knits to the dress shops. Her clothes are well made and elegant, and she always faces tomorrow with a smile. When she speaks, she has something worthwhile to say, and she always says it kindly. She keeps an eye out for everyone in her household and keeps them all busy and productive. Her children respect and bless her, and her husband joins in the words of praise. Many women have done wonderful things, but you've outclassed them all. Charm can mislead and beauty soon fade, but the woman to be admired and praised is the woman who lives in the fear of God, gives her everything she deserves. Adorn her with praises." So sounds like a wonderful woman, doesn't it? And she's Wonder Woman. But I think there's 2 or 3 points we can just get out of this quickly. And the first one, all you ladies will love this, or maybe all your men will love this, is she looks after her husband. Yeah, because she knows it makes for a happy family. And that it brings security for the children. Even though men are normally out of the home working and so are not so hands-on with the children, they play a huge role in bringing security and discipline. And yes, love, lots of it, especially when children see that their mum's loved and respected by dad, and dad loves and respects mum. That's the key, I think. And the second one is she works hard in the home with a sense of worth, knowing her value. And I think that a lot of people don't know their value, mums, of the work that they do in the home and what she is teaching and implanting into her children's life. Everyday, ordinary things that really minister to children. And third, she's industrious. She provides for her children's material needs. There's many ways we can do that. Even though this is a really old scriptures, it can still be relevant for today. Number 4, she is wise, kind, and creative. Sounds great, doesn't she? She's wise, kind, and creative. And she also finds time to help the poor in her community. So she's a mum who reaches out to others. It's not just her little circle, but she is prepared to reach out into the community and help others. And she watches out for everyone in her household and knows how to motivate them to become great, helpful members of society. And that's a real key, isn't it? Because all our children are different. And what motivates one does not motivate the other. I don't know whether you've discovered that. Something you can speak kindness to one and they'll do anything for you. You speak kindness to another one and they still won't do what they're told. And so you have to find some other way. This mother this woman knows how to motivate each of her children to become helpful members of society. And 7, she has a husband who praises her and thinks he has the best. And just a little word here. She has a husband who praises her. Men? She has a husband who praises her and thinks she has the best. Women are emotionally motivated and like to hear those words, love to hear those words. Number 4, 8. But over encompassing all those things, in the end of the scripture it says she fears God. She has a reverence for God, and she tries to do everything under the guidance of the Holy Spirit and of God. And if you can do that, so this scripture, even though it's hundreds of years old, is relevant for today and will always be relevant. So mums, grandmothers, aunties, you have the privilege of loving, directing, teaching and enabling, cheering on the next generation, which indeed makes it the number 1 best job in the world, the hardest job in the world, and the most rewarding, challenging job in the world. And the question today for each one of us, we probably need to ask us regularly, are you up for the challenge? Are you up for the challenge? Don't opt out and let the world bring up your children. Pray for them and turn the TV off when they're little. We see quite so many people with the young ones, right from little babies, stick them in front of the TV, and Mr. Bluey or whatever it is brings up their children. But you need to give it your best, because the rewards are great, even though the challenge is great. So ask yourself again today, am I up for the challenge? Any amens? Yes, I am up for the challenge. And then when you've done it all, you can start on your grandchildren and be up for the challenge for them as well. So the Lord bless you and keep you. And if you would like prayer in any way, that we'll be happy to pray for you. But I think it'd be great if you just, at this moment, even if you've got a little family group or just women together, whatever it may be, that you stand together and just, how about you just pray for them, that God will really minister into their life wherever they're at, whether they're a young mum or an old mum or whatever it may be, that God will really speak to you in some little way today, that you can continue that challenge with gladness of heart and loving your kids. The most important thing is to love your kids regardless. Do our kids let us down? Yes, they do. Did we let our parents down? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. But we still, it doesn't stop us loving them. We don't have to agree with some of the things they do as adults, but we are called to love them and to pray for them. So let's just do that together as we finish the music. Musicians can play, and come on, just even whatever role you're in, you can pray with somebody and ask God to help you in the area that you need help in. Thank you.
Amen.